You will see a lot of numerical questions in project management, PMP certification basically. And there will be a lot of scenarios around these numerical problems. In this session, we try to address various scenarios that one might expect in all of the numerical problems. So we have broken it down based on various concepts. This will be extremely helpful for you to pass your exam. Let us move to the next slide. Here is a quick snapshot of what ExcelR solution is. We are headquartered in Bengaluru. We have a presence in major cities. We have a presence in various countries. We have trained 10,000 plus participants, including universities, colleges, corporates, and all that. We have 20 plus courses which we cater to in the space of business analytics, Six Sigma, project management, so on and so forth. We have 30 plus corporate clients across the globe, across industries, interestingly. Right? And most of our trainers, you see that they are from Financial Times top 20 B schools, so that you get the best from the best folks. And we provide trainings on PMP, ACP, RMP, and things like that. We try to address pain areas in PMP certification by providing you these kind of sessions alongside the regular PMP training. Someone has, let me mute you all from my. All right. Okay. And then you'll see all these topics: number of communication channels, critical path, value, earned value method or management, forecasting, and things like that. Here is the agenda. We will first look into communication channels, followed by these things. It may or may not be in that order, but first let us look into communication channels. Planned communication management process. This is the first process of communication management knowledge area, right? There is a process called planned communication management. Within that, you have a tool or technique called as communication requirement analysis. And as a project manager, you should know the potential communication channels to establish the communication complexity. And here is a formula to calculate the number of communication channels, n into n minus 1 by 2, where n is number of stakeholders. Let us get into the scenarios. Here is scenario 1. There are 7 members in a project. Calculate the number of communication channels. How would you calculate if a question is asked in this way? Let us jump in. All right. So here is a scenario 1, and this is how you calculate. If there are 7 members in the project, then your n number of stakeholders would be 7. And what is the formula to calculate the number of communication channels? It is n into n minus 1 by 2. If I simply substitute 7, the number of stakeholders or the number of team members in this, I would get 21. And that is the right answer, D. Let us move on to scenario 2. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen, right? You're unable to see my screen. Yeah. So let me know once you see my screen. I'll go back to the previous slide. Right, you guys can see it now. All right. Okay. All right, good. So this is what I've been explaining, right? If you have 7 members or 7 team members or 7 stakeholders in the project, then your n would be 7 in this formula of number of communication channels. N into n minus 1 by 2. If you have 7, replace 7 in this formula. That's it. 7 into 7 minus 1 by 2, which is 42 by 2, which would be 21. And that is your answer, 21. All right, let us move to scenario 2. You are a project manager working on a mission critical project along with 10 other team members. Calculate the number of communication channels. If you get a scenario like this, how to go about addressing that? How many stakeholders do I have? 10 team members, plus I also have a project manager. Do not forget the project manager. So 10 plus 1 would be 11. So you have to consider 11 stakeholders to calculate the number of communication channels. Here is a solution. Formula to calculate the number of communication channels is n into n minus 1 by 2. Please consider project manager along with the 10 team members. Do not miss out on the project manager, but it depends on the scenario. In this scenario, you have to count the project manager because the project manager is working along with 10 other team members. So the total count is 11. If you substitute n is equal to 11 in the formula, n into n minus 1 by 2, you get this. 11 into 11 minus 1 by 2, which is nothing but 110 divided by 2, and that gives you an answer of 55. So B is the right answer for us. I see. Swati, you got it wrong, right? 11. Okay. Maybe you're speaking about the number of stakeholders. That's fine. All right, here is scenario 3. Hey, Kamesh has joined. Number of communication channels in a telecommunications project are 66. How many stakeholders are there in the project? So what is it that they are saying? They are saying that you have number of communication channels, which is 66. That means n into n minus 1 divided by 2 is equal to 66. Here is a solution for that. Right? Formula to calculate the number of communication channels is this: n into n minus 1 by 2. Since number of communication channels is provided, we need to identify what is n here. Use substitution technique, right? Start replacing your options A, B, C, D in this formula n into n minus 1 by 2 and check whether you are getting 66 communication channels or not. So if I replace 10 in this formula, n into n minus 1 by 2, 10 into 10 minus 1 by 2 would be what? 45. Am I getting 66 communication channels? No. So let me replace 11. 11 into 11 minus 1 by 2 would be 55. But we need to get 66 communication channels, right? Let me replace 12. 12 into 12 minus 1 by 2, which is nothing but 66 communication channels. So you need to use this substitution technique always. If you get this kind of a question wherein communication channels are provided and question says find out the number of stakeholders, substitute these. All right, this is how you approach, and C is the right answer here. Here is the fourth scenario. Before that, let me see your chat window. All right, nothing alarming there. An escalator renovation project which follows typical waterfall model is into the testing phase. The project started with 10 resources. Another 5 were added during the build phase. During testing phase, 6 resources were rolled off. How many communication channels exist now, as of now? So this word now is extremely important for you, right? As of now, how many communication channels exist? How do you go about answering this? Here is the solution for that. Note the number of stakeholders as provided in the question. Note down those first. Total number of project resources is given as 10 resources. Number of resources in build phase, 5 were added. And number of resources rolled off during the testing phase was 6. 10 plus 5 minus 6 will give you total number of stakeholders as of now. This key word now is important. And the number of stakeholders as of now is 9. So I simply substitute 9 in the formula of number of communication channels, which is n into n minus 1 by 2. So 9 into 9 minus 1 by 2 is what? 36. Do I have 36?
Kumar,
Yep.
Kumar, are we not going to add 1 for project manager in this scenario?
1 second. Yeah, Kalpana. So it's not mentioned anywhere, right, that there is a project manager separately involved here? Only if it is mentioned in the question, you need to add project manager, right?
Okay.
Oh, Similar to our previous question, if something about project managers is mentioned, yes, you need to add. Otherwise, you need not add.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay. So here we go with the next question. You are a project manager for a project being performed from multiple locations, adding to the complexity of the communication among team members. There are 6 resources in Atlanta, which happens to be your place of work as well. Another 3 resources are working from India. Calculate the number of communication channels. You're a project manager and there are 6 resources in Atlanta, which happens to be your place of work as well. In this scenario, do you think we need to add project manager
Yeah,
as well?
one.
Yes, you're absolutely
Yes.
right on that. And here's my solution. Let me quickly edit that. So number of resources is in Atlanta is 6 plus 1 because I need to add the project manager as well, right? So you need to add project manager as well here. And the total count would be 7 plus 3, which is equal to 10. And if I substitute 10, it will be what? 10 into 10 minus 1 by 2, right? And here I would get 45. And the answer would be D. Okay, so in this scenario, you need to add the project manager because the question is framed in that way. You're a project manager and there are 6 resources in Atlanta, which happens to be your place of work as well. And hence the number of resources in Atlanta would be 6 plus 1. We are adding the project manager as well. And the count of resources in Atlanta would be 7. And in India, we have 3 resources. So 7 plus 3 takes the tally to 10. Simply substitute 10 in the formula n into n minus 1 by 2. That is the formula for number of communication channels. So if I do 10 into 10 minus 1 by 2, I get 45. Right? Let us move on to the next scenario. There are 2 projects, A and B. Project A has 8 resources and project B has 12 resources. You need to know the complexity in the communication between the 2 projects and you want to do further analysis on that. What is the difference in the communication channels between projects A and B? That is a question. You need to separately identify the number of communication channels for project A. You need to separately calculate the number of communication channels for project B. And then you need to subtract both of these to arrive at the number. Let us see what the solution says. Find the communication channels for both the projects separately. Yes. How many stakeholders do I have on project A? 8 resources. I have 8 here. I simply substitute this 8 in this formula n into n minus 1 by 2. And it is going to be 28. How many stakeholders do I have on project B? I have 12 resources here. I simply substitute these 12 resources in this formula n into n minus 1 by 2, thereby arriving at this number 66. What does the question say? What is the difference in the communication channels between projects A and B? And the difference is going to be 38. Do I have that option? Oh yes, I have that option here. Do you know how questions would be framed on that? They're going to have all the options. For example, I purposefully haven't updated this particular question because I wanted to show you guys on how the questions would be framed. All right. What is 66 plus 28? It's going to be 94. And that would be an option. Only 28 would be an option. Only 66 would be another option. Yeah. So if you have these options so close, right, all the calculations that you perform would result into one of these options, thereby making your life even more difficult, right? But now we know the trick. We know how people will try to trick us. So we know how to get this answer right. Let us move on with the next scenario. Let me select the pointer. Okay. There are a total of 12 members in your project. Out of these, 6 members are working for different project altogether. Later, 2 team members were added back and 3 members went on vacation. How many communication channels are there in the project now? How do you go about addressing this? All right, look at this. Total number of stakeholders, 12. There are 12 members in your project team. Number of resources working for different project are 6. So you'll not consider these 6 resources for your project's communication channels. So I subtract 6 from the number of stakeholders, total number of stakeholders. And then I'll be left with 6 resources in the project as of now. So this keyword now is extremely important. If I remove now here, if I say how many communication channels are there in the project, maybe you'll have to calculate it differently, right? So number of resources added to the project is 2. So if I'm left with 6 resources, 6 plus 2 would take the count to 8 resources as of now. And 3 resources went on vacation now. So I subtract 3 resources from the total of 8 resources. And finally, I arrive at this number 5. I simply substitute 5 in the formula for number of communication channels, which is n into n minus 1 by 2, which is going to give me 10 communication channels. And do I have 10 in the options? Yes, I have 10 in the options. So you go for that. Oh no, I need to change that. Damayanti, good catch. Good catch. I need to change that to B. There'll be a lot of mistakes, these kind of mistakes, because I have not rechecked this. Why do you want me to recheck? Because anyways, you have 10 more resources who are reviewing this. All right. So, hey Raghu, I've muted you from my end. Here is another scenario.
Kumar, a small question.
Yeah.
In previous example, scenario 7.
Yes.
The question is asked like how many communication channels are there in project.
In this scenario,
Then,
Raghu, there's a lot of
instead of now,
background noise from your end. Raghu, I would request you to type your question there because there's a lot of background noise. There's a lot of disturbance from your end. Sorry, I muted you from my end. Please drop in your query on the chat. How many communication channels are there in the project? So are you asking me a question on what if I remove now and ask what are the number of communication channels in the project? Is that your question? Please confirm, Raghu. All right. So you tell me, how would you calculate that? I remove now. How would you calculate in that case? I would probably take 12 team members and subtract 6 from that. Right? I would still add 2 more resources. But one thing that I would not do is I would not subtract the number of resources who went on vacation. I would consider even them for my number of communication channels calculation. Getting that is how I would calculate basically. If someone wants to argue on that, we are free for the discussion. Why should you subtract 6? Because 6 members are working for a different project and they're asking you to calculate the number of communication channels which are there in the project, in your project basically. So if 6 members are working in a different project altogether, probably I should not be considering them. Right, Swati?
Okay.
It may affect the whole project even if they work on different project. This is not a sub-project. It's a different project. Do you know the concept of project and sub-projects? Within a project, you might have multiple sub-projects. Right? If they are working in sub-projects, then I still consider them as part of my team. But they are working for a different project altogether. So I probably remove them, and I also add 2 more resources who got added. Yeah, Shilpa. It would be 12 minus 6 plus 2 if I remove this word now. All right. So let us continue and look into the next scenario. You are a project manager and project has 12 stakeholders, 2 developers, and 10 additional channels. How many total communication channels are there in the project? Can you tell me what would be N here? What would be the count of number of stakeholders or number of team members here? N. What would be N for your calculation? 12. Are you not going to count 2 developers and 10 additional channels? Would you not do that? Yep. 25, 24. Look at that. Few of y'all are very focused. When I say number of stakeholders, stakeholders means it includes your developers, additional channels, your project manager. Everyone is a stakeholder, right? Remember the definition of stakeholders. Here we go. If the number of stakeholders is provided, then the rest of the details are not required for you. Number of stakeholders is equal to 12, which is given here, which includes project manager, which includes the 2 developers, and it also includes 10 additional channels. Hence, the number of communication channels, you're considering N as 12 here. 12 into 12 minus 1 by 2, which will give you a count of 66. Yeah, stakeholders include everyone. Very tricky? Yeah, true. So consider this situation and just let me know what would be the count. Suppose I say 12 testers. Right. Now what would be N here? I would have project manager plus 12 testers plus 2 developers plus 10 additional communication channels. When would I get 10 additional communication channels? If I have 5 resources, right? 5 into 5 minus 1 by 2, which will be 10. So 10 communication channels translates to 5 resources. What if they give you a complicated big number there? How would you calculate? How would you calculate then? How many resources do we have here now? Total project manager plus 12 plus 2, which would be 14. Exactly, you got it. She got it, Swati got it. Calculate the number of communication channels for these many resources and add these communication channels. Probably you'll get one of the options here, or if not, a different number, right? Calculate the number of communication channels with so many people. Project manager, 12 testers and 2 developers separately, and then add this 10 to the number of communication channels which you have calculated using these resources. Project manager, 12 testers and 2 developers. That is how you'll have to go about answering this. Okay? Yes, Swati, you got it right. You got it right. Here we go to the next question or scenario. This is the last scenario. You have a 5-member team in Texas, 10-member team in China, and the total of 253 communication channels. How many developers do you have in Indonesia? That is the question. Here are my options. How do you go about addressing this? Here also you have to go based on substitution technique. So the number of team members in Texas is equal to 5. The number of team members in China is equal to 10. And the number of communication channels is given as 253. Add the options to the present team size of 10 plus 5, right? You have 5 in Texas, 10 in China. The total count would be 15 team members. Now pick each of these options, say 5 resources in Indonesia, add this 5 to this 15 here. It will be 20. So substitute in n into n minus 1 by 2. That would be 20 into 20 minus 1 by 2. Am I getting 253 communication channels? No. Substitute 10 to the existing team here. You have 15 team members. Add another 10. The total count would be 25. N is equal to 25. Substitute in the formula n into n minus 1 by 2. So 25 into 24 by 2. Are you getting 253? No. It will be more than that. If I substitute 8 and if I add 8 resources to 15 team members, the count would be 23. And now if I substitute 23 in n into n minus 1 by 2, I get this number of communication channels as 253. That is how I use substitution technique in order to arrive at the right answer. Here is So whatever scenarios we have learned until now on communication channels covers all the possible scenarios. And these things which we have discussed covers all scenarios which one might encounter in the PMP exam. Not just that, one might expect 30 plus numerical questions in PMP main exam on various topics, including control charts, PERT, program evaluation review technique or 3-point estimation, critical path method, earned value management, expected monetary value, forecasting, procurement contract types. So there will be 30 plus numerical questions for your grab. The complete video session which ExcelR records has all possible scenarios of all these topics. This is only going to increase your chances of faring well in the exam, get more marks, thereby claim yourself as PMP certified professional. This has been tested and this has helped a lot of PMP aspirants world over to pass the PMP exam. Do you want access to such a good session? Oh yes. Please drop in an email to inquiry@excelr.com and do not forget to mention the subject line as PMP numerical question session. 100% satisfaction is guaranteed, and if you dislike the session for any reason, you can claim your entire amount that you have paid, no questions asked. Thank you so much, and I wish you all the best for the PMP exam. Bye.